Are you the parent of a toddler, or maybe you're the caregiver of a toddler, and you're wondering how to help a toddler with making more phrases? That is, with putting words together to make two-word utterances. This is normally a milestone that's expected around the age of 2 years. So, if you want to find out three of the main tips that I suggest to do in daily routines, then keep watching. Hi, my name is Amini. I'm a speech and language pathologist with several years of experience working with children and parents to maximize speech and language development. I have my own private practice, Smarter Speech, in the Bay Area, California. And my mission with this channel is to empower parents and caregivers with little bits of knowledge and tips that can boost speech and language development, especially in children under the age of 5, because this is when a lot of language development is happening. The brain is developing so rapidly, and little changes that you make in speech and language can have huge implications for how a child is going to develop, how their learning is going to develop in the future. So, without further ado, let's get into my 3 tips that I would suggest for trying to get a toddler to say more phrases. We talked about how this is an appropriate milestone for children of around the age of 2, but there is an important milestone that usually precedes this milestone. And that milestone is being able to say at least 50 different words. It makes sense if a child only has a vocabulary that's decent, they're going to be able to use words within that vocabulary to combine to make phrases. So if your child doesn't have 50 words yet, the main thing to focus on is to get your child to those 50 words. Normally, around 18 months or so, a child should have a vocabulary of around 50 words. If a child doesn't, then I recommend checking out my other video on how to help your child speak more, or your toddler speak more words. There are 3 main tips that I talk about in that one. It's very important to do those, get to close to around 50 words before you start to work on phrases. If your child is already at 50 words, then you want to start bringing in those phrases or those multiple word utterances. How do we do this? Well, the first thing that you want to do is make sure that you yourself are using 2-word phrases in a very targeted way with your child. That means during playtime, when you're sure your child is really listening to you, during daily routines, you want to make sure that you're showing your child how to make 2-word phrases. Meaning, during those times, limit yourself to 2-word utterances when you're talking about things, whether you're describing or labeling, and repeat those 2-word phrases over and over again. And make sure you're speaking nice and slow, with an opportunity for your child to repeat after you if needed. I'm going to show you how I would do this with this lovely fire truck here. So if I was playing with an approximately 2-year-old child and I was trying to demo a lot of 2-word phrases with some room to repeat, here's how I would do it. I would start by pointing out red truck. Wow, cool, red truck. I like this red truck. Do you want this? This is a... After I said red truck 3 times, I wait to see if the child will say it after me. Okay, and now we are going to make this ladder go up, right? Ladder up. Let's say it together. Ladder up. Can you say it? Ladder up. Good job. And now let's see. Maybe this guy is going to climb, right? Where is he going to climb again? Oh, right, the orange ladder. This is an orange ladder. Cool. Orange ladder. It's a... Okay, now let's climb up the orange ladder. So notice again, I said each 2-word phrase, I really isolated it. I repeated it quite a few times, at least 3 times. I paused to see if the child would repeat after me. And another very important thing that I did is after my pause, I made sure that I kept going. So there wasn't a lot of stress that you have to repeat something. If you don't repeat, I'm not going to say the next thing. Toddlers do not do well with stress. There was just a slight break. I never said say this or I want you to say this. All of that will introduce some pressure. So that's the way that I labeled the 2-word utterances. And you can do this at least for 10 to 15 minutes a day so that your child sees a very targeted way of teaching 2-word utterances. The next thing that you want to do is you want to see which types of words to focus on and maybe cycle through particular types for some days just to make sure to really increase the child's familiarity with that phrase. So in terms of which phrases I would look out for, I would say in and on phrases. So things like on the truck or in the truck or Blippi in or ladder on. Those are great, easy 2-word phrases. I would also look for color plus object. So red truck, blue button, orange ladder. All of these are really good, easy 2-word utterances that you can start talking about. And the last thing I would look for is subject and verb. So in this case with Blippi, I said Blippi sits or Blippi up or Blippi drives or Blippi walks, because a subject and verb utterance is actually the foundation for a sentence, and that can only be 2 words long. So you're setting your child up for sentences as well. So you could do this with any activity. I just showed you guys the FIRETRUCK, how I would talk and how I would repeat. I'll show you just a few more so you can get a little bit of an example. If I'm working with a toy oven, for example, maybe I would point out pink button. Maybe I would point out burger in. Maybe I would point out oven on. Maybe I would point out things that I can do. Again, subject, verb. So I could point out I push, I open, I close, I eat, I cook, etc. You could also do the same thing with you. You push, you open, you close, etc. All right, so that's just a few examples, but you can do any sort of a toy, you could do any sort of a routine and use that as an opportunity to show your 2-word utterances and of course to wait after some time to see if your child will copy you as well. The last tip is a little bit more technical, but it's a lot of fun. So the last tip, which is especially appropriate if your child is saying at least 50 one-word utterances, is something in speech therapy that's called expansion. So what you're going to do is everything that your child says, that's one word, great, just tack another word on, expand the utterance. So for example, if your child is looking at some blocks, and maybe they're going to say, here's a train with some blocks. So maybe they say something like train. You can say, oh, yeah, that's a big train. Or maybe they say something like block. Then you can say, red block. Or maybe they'll point out one. Then you can say, you're right, red one. Or maybe you'll say one on, right? Or maybe they say something like turn. Then you can say, I turn. So everything that your child says, listen for it, wait, add on one word and repeat it back. You can even do your repeats a few times to really solidify that concept. So for example, if your child says train, then you can say train rolls. You're right. Look at that. Train roll. Train rolls. And then give your child the train and wait and see if they will say train rolls, if they will expand their original utterance to now be a phrase. Again, same thing with this one. You don't want to force anything. You don't want to force your child to repeat after you. Just the fact that you repeated that expansion over and over again will really help. And what I really love about expansion is it's a back and forth turn. You heard your child and you responded to it. And that tends to get a little more follow through with your child because you're really listening to them and you're putting them in the position of the leader instead of always following you. So that sometimes can really open up a child's language and communication. So there you have it, my 3 tips for increasing toddler phrase use. If you enjoyed this tip, please subscribe to my channel for more speech and language tips. There's also some more resources in the description box below. There's a link to our mailing list for a free speech and language tip every month. There's also our toddler language development ebook, parent education course for toddler language development, and there's also links to some of the toys and the materials that I used throughout this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this helped you, and happy talking.